Well, hello and welcome back to the channel. It's a beautiful May day, mid-May, and I thought we'd go for a little walk around the garden and have a look at the wildflowers that are really beginning to burst into flower. We've had a very wet winter, and in some ways it's made for a difficult spring. Slugs, anyone? But in others, it's been fantastic. The wildflowers have loved it and are bursting out all over, especially now we're getting some slightly warmer days, better weather. So let's go for a walk around the garden. We'll have a look at the wildflowers and I'll show you what we've got growing here. And if you're new to the channel, you're very welcome. Please do subscribe. Press the bell icon and we'll tell you when we've got more clips coming up. And if any of the tips and tricks we give you along the way are useful, you can always buy me a coffee, or better still, join my club. The links to coffee buying and club membership are in the blurb to all my clips. Right, on we go. This is Herb Robert, and it's everywhere on the farm this spring. I've never seen it in such abundance. It's a little wild geranium. Now this is Fabrizio's biggest meadow. It's the most successful area of meadow here, and at the moment it is a mass of buttercups. But I will take the camera and show you, we'll dive into it a little bit and show you what we've got coming. Fabrizio, once a year, for one morning only, teaches a workshop how to create perennial wildflower meadows like this. And his workshop is coming up at the beginning of June, and I'll put the link to it here so that if you're in the area, you could book a spot. I have to say, there are few people more not only enthusiastic, but knowledgeable about their subject. And so if you're looking for a session on how to transform even quite a small area, you don't have to have a huge wildflower meadow. I think often people think, oh, you need acres. No, no. This is quite big. You could have an area as small as this area behind me. When we walk around, I'll show you there are some really small wildflower areas here. And so Fabrizio is very, very keen to encourage people to think about even quite a small area in their gardens where they can create wildflower patches, perhaps dig a small pond. I'll show you the pond, because of the whole ecosystem which will come, which will grow, which will support your garden. And you know Fabrizio's saying, look after the invertebrates and the rest of the food chain will look after itself. So come on, I'm going to take you all the way down to the end, and then we'll work back and we'll go around the whole patch and have a look at some of the wildflowers that we have here. We are Zone B, very thick Somerset clay. In the winter it's a marsh, and in the summer it's a baked concrete desert. And I'll show you what we have growing here, and maybe it'll inspire you to have a go. And if you can get here, we're in southeast Somerset, in early June. I'll put the link to the date in the blurb below here. Then do book a session, the once a year session with Fabrizio, and learn how to bring wildflowers into your land like this. And then all the associated wildlife. I mean, I have to say, every year it does cheer me up no end. Given that we've lost something like 97% of our wildflower meadows in the UK since the Second World War, what I'm going to show you here has been established in the last 20 years since we came here in 2004. So all is not lost. There is a great deal of hope if you can take a little corner of your land, and it doesn't have to be acres. A little corner and give it over to the wild. Oh look, I can't resist. Look, very simple and not especially unusual, but can you see the red campion, the red clover coming there? That's on one side of the path. And then on the other, here come the orchids. In case I missed them on the way back, that pink person is ragged robin. It's a kind of campion. And just next door, you see the little white umbellifer? That's corky fruited water dropwort just coming. And once you get your eye in, you realise that there are orchids everywhere here. Look, more herb robert in the hedge, and then you move along and that's campion, the pink person. It's actually called scarlet campion, but it's pink. So coming through the gate here, just before I go any further, this is a lovely wild viburnum, and it's just coming into flower. That's a great favourite of mine. It cuts very nicely, this. You can have it as a cut flower, very successful. And lovely bright red fruit in the autumn. Very, very pretty. And then round the corner here, we've got this little pond that we dug during lockdown. This was a lockdown project for Fabrizio and the children. And here we've got these lovely flag iris that have, I think Fabrizio's helped them along, but aren't they fantastic? And what a colour. They are absolutely spectacular. There's a net over this pond to stop the heron eating the newt babies. Fabrizio will take it off in a minute. It just goes up for a couple of months to protect the newts. More ragged robin. And obviously this netting gets rolled up and put away, and we use it again year on year. This is anything but single-use plastic. If you're thinking about no-mow May, we're keen no-mow Mayers, but the wildlife does like a path too. It likes different levels. The invertebrates like different levels to get around. Oh look, this is lady's smock. Very, very pretty little person there. And it has been a fantastic year for the bugle, little ajuga here. And we have it, again, another reason, sort of have some fairly close cut sward, but don't overcut it, and the ajuga can get through the bugle. They're more or less finished now, but we've had bluebells. I'm slowly establishing bluebells around the place. You can dig them up when they're pretty much over like this, and replant them around. And this is the wild garlic that I have been feasting upon for weeks and weeks and weeks. Very, very good for you. We're very lucky. We have this sort of wild corner, and we have a neighbour who's planted this lovely wood through the edge here. This is where the deer live, and it's very, very lightly managed. And you can see, if I zoom in a bit, can you see the pink of the campion through there? If you can talk to your neighbours and try and plan a way for the wild to join up, corridors of wild, from one piece of garden to another, then there's room for the wildlife to get through, to move on, to find a mate next door. It's a good idea. Right, back through the gate, and we'll go right into the orchard. More campion, and this is hogweed. This person here, much beloved of invertebrates. Don't touch it. It's got a very furry stem and it might cause photosensitivity and blisters on your skin. This is not the certifiable plant giant hogweed, but it's still pretty. It will give you blisters if you play with it. We had an amazing person here last week called Jean Vernon, and she's a bee specialist. She's written some lovely books about bees and having bees, encouraging bees and pollinators to your garden. So I'm now on the qui vive. So I started that filming because there was a bee, but it flew away. The buttercups are incredible at this time of year. There, more ragged robin. It has really loved the wet winter. So back along the path here, orchid spotting as we go. But do you see a little white flower tucked in there with a hoverfly on it? There we are. That's stitchwort coming all the way through, and I can see all kinds of other wildflowers coming for later in the summer. Beneath the cover of the buttercups, there are sort of generations to come. And here is the little ragged, jagged edged person next to the spotted leaf. Look, little oak tree. And somebody, oh yes, even littler oak tree. Thank you very much. The acorn doesn't fall far from the tree. The poplars here, we struck just pieces of twig when we moved here 20 years ago. They are much beloved of the bees, who use the propolis off their sticky buds in spring to stick their hives together. Now this patch will be in full flower later. You can see a little bit of pink there from the ragged robin, but there is a lot of late summer interest. So that's meadow sweet, the ragged edged, the sharp edged leaf there, and yellow loosestrife, the soft blunt edged leaf. This person there is mare's tail, a pernicious weed, or if you prefer, a plant as old as the dinosaurs. And I'm reliably informed makes a very good washing up brush. And over here, this silver person, you see the silvery leaves, it's called silverweed, oddly enough. And in the far off distant past, people used to line their shoes with it because it made it easier to walk. Personally, I think it looks a bit uncomfortable, but you never know. The shoes might not have been very comfortable at the time. And the pink person is actually a Persicaria bistorta, which is pretending to be a wildflower, and it's escaped here from elsewhere in the garden. We have another pond here. It's good to have areas of water so that the frogs and the toads have got somewhere, and the newts have got somewhere to live, but also so that you see the surface jiggering about. It's because there's a huge amount of people dancing up and down on the surface, having a quick drink. And if you have beachy areas, then people who can't dive down on the water and drink or hatch out of the water can climb in and safely have a drink and then escape. There's lots of ragged robin this year. Some years there's hardly any. And obviously no self-respecting English wild garden at this time of year would exist without some cow parsley. During the winter when we're cutting back, Fabrizio heaps up the dead bits into, if not dead hedges, dead heaps, because the beetles, the slow worms, the hedgehogs all need somewhere like this to live. The spiked leaves here are all teasel, which be very tall and have scratchy balls, scratchy sort of egg-shaped flowers, purplish, which in the winter the goldfinches will feast upon. Look, another baby oak tree. This will have been planted by a jay or someone. And then here is wild angelica, which will give us amazing umbellifers later in the summer. You see what I mean about the Herb Robert? It's everywhere this year. Oh look, the white camassia I planted in the autumn, just beginning to pop. And more campion in the dappled shade of the wooded edge we planted. This area was all just the edge of a very green meadow planted for feeding cattle. And when we came, we put this band of trees all the way around the edge of the property, and it's provided a haven for all kinds of wildlife, including some of the wildflowers like the campion. And you can see still some of these trees have been here for a while, but when we planted them they had protection, these tree guards, and they, every now and again I go around and take a load of them out. If I have my time again, I'm not sure I'd bother, but then we do have a lot of squirrels, so tree guards there are. These big geranium leaves are going to be Meadow cranesbill, fantastic blue, in about a month. There are the tall spikes of the Telema grandiflora escaped into the hedge, more campion, which have settled in with a lot of ferns. When we came here, there were no ferns at all. And now look, they are springing up all over the place. And if you're wondering what teasel looks like when it's grown up, it's very tall, taller than me, much taller than me. That's probably 8 foot of teasel reaching up to the sky under that oak tree. I love the way the cow parsley's reaching out from the hedge. The wildflowers, once you let them settle, they kind of knit together in a patchwork. There's a lot of comfrey here and it kind of escapes around the place. It's very much beloved of the bees. Again, have a little hairy path and people spring up along the edge of it. This is a white bladder campion and it springs up every year and pulls up through this willow herb here. The willow herb will be pink when it flowers. And then soon to come, this just growing up plant will be what I call bacon and eggs, orange and yellow. I think some people call it something like a shepherd's purse. And then the scratchy looking person there, that's Achillea. And all this geranium leaf will flower shortly, and here it is. It's a mountain cranesbill, tiny little pink flower, very, very pretty. And just in front of it, here is, that's yellow rattle about to flower. If I put my hand behind it, you'll be able to focus on it. There. So that's yellow rattle, just coming into flower. And there's that pink, little pink mountain cranesbill. And a great favourite of mine when it works is this little pink vetch. And it clambers its way through the sward. Quite a lot of yellow rattle there. I think it prefers it here because this year, not every year, but this year, because the winter's been so wet, it's a bit drier along this path. And it's always good to have white umbellifers against a dark background, because aren't they attractive? These are all hogweed, not for touching, just for admiring, and very, very beloved as a food source for invertebrates. Lots more herb robert just along the edge of the path here. You don't need a huge amount of room. You could just have herb robert where you park your car. And here come the elderflower, just coming into flower. It's going to be a good year for them. I will remember to ring my friend Nikki, who likes to come and cut them, and she makes elderflower cordial, and then she gives some to me. Fair exchange is no robbery. And look, so imagine how big a patch this is. Maybe 20, 25 feet by maybe 6 or 7 feet. And let's see what we can find. Little white stitchwort. The cowslip's going to seed. Sorrel. Daisy's about to pop. The first, this patch always has lots of orchids. There's an orchid there. Can you see that the daisies are all about to explode into flower? Ragged robin. If you don't know which are the daisies, in a minute these will be oxeye daisies. Any minute. Again, quite a lot more yellow rattle. I think it's really preferred this, after this wet winter, it's preferred slightly drier ground. So there's plenty of it here. Fabrizio's been worried about it, but I think less worried now. If he hasn't, he will have seen this. He spends a great deal of time examining his wildflowers. More orchids. You see their spotty leaves. Once you get your eye in, you see there are lots and lots of them, and they're all beginning to flower. These silver leaves here will be knapweed, purple in high summer. And here, I can't walk on there, but I'm going to show you. Do you see the sort of frondy leaf where my finger was? There. wild carrot. And that's all in quite a short area, a wild edge. So if you've got room for a wild edge, you could have smaller than this. You don't have to have this much. Imagine how many varieties you could have tucked away in your wild edge. And here on the mound, where it's a bit warmer and a bit drier, the daisies are beginning to come out there. There's also lots of dead nettle. Take my life in my hands and walk across here to show you the dead nettle. Great food source for bees. Look, there's a ladybird mumbling about. And here are some more oxeye daisies. They're just coming out. Ooh, look. Spider. This is a classic situation. Look, you get your eye in, and there are spiders everywhere on all of these flowers. They've got spiders. There must be a special, there's a hatch. There's either a hatch or they're all meeting up to make babies with each other. I'll ask Fabrizio what they're called. And then you can always enjoy an unexpected explosion of colour. This square behind me, held down, square of plastic being held down, is going to be a new vegetable garden. It used to be an orchard, but our house has got subsidence. And so the insurers made us take down a load of apple trees unnecessarily, it turned out. But anyway, never mind. But can you see behind me all that pink campion? Because there's fresh light there, it's gone berserk. I love the way the garden escapes into and out of each other. Look, Aquilegia just growing in the sward. Really worth not mowing in May, because you never know who you might get popping up. And in amongst everything else, there's campion and more of that Persicaria bistorta. It looks like a wildflower, but it's not. All tucked in with more cow parsley. As I'm passing, whoops a daisy, Fabrizio came back from the plant sale with 3 ducklings. He's building them a permanent home, but for the moment they're quite happy here. So again, just don't mow too tightly around the edge of your garden. And you too could have this incredible display of campion or something like it. Don't mow too tightly around the feet of your apple trees. And in might come the cow parsley or the Telema grandiflora. Right, well, I hope you've enjoyed this little trip around the garden looking at wildflowers. You don't need a huge amount of space for wildflowers. What you need, if you want some, is a strip. And what you can do first time around is just not mow it to see what you've got naturally. And then the yellow rattle needs to be sprinkled as seed, very fresh in the autumn. But you can grow other wildflower varieties as plug plants in your greenhouse over the winter. And then plant them out into the sward. Or come on Fabrizio's Wildflower Meadow workshop. He talks about making perennial wildflower meadows. So not cornfield, perennial wildflower meadows. And he can help you develop areas of wild like we have. Not acres and acres of, glorious. Well, you can if you want. But not everybody has acres and acres. But a lot of people have a little patch. and he can help you turn that into an amazing perennial wildflower meadow. Anyway, I'll put all the details for that in the blurb, and I hope to see some of you right here at CommonFarm very soon. If not, I hope you've enjoyed the clip, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.